Have you ever wondered how the Israel-Palestine conflict began? The genesis of this complex conflict can be traced back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when a movement known as Zionism started gaining momentum. Zionism emerged in response to the widespread persecution of Jews in Europe, propagating the idea of a secure homeland for Jewish people. This homeland was envisioned in Palestine, a region which at that time was populated predominantly by Arab Muslims and Christians. In the year 1917, amidst the chaos of the First World War, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration. Named after the then British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour, this document expressed Britain's support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This was a significant milestone in the Zionist movement, providing a kind of legitimacy to their cause on an international level. Following the end of the First World War, Britain took control of Palestine under a League of Nations mandate. The British Mandate of Palestine, as it was known, lasted from 1922 until 1948. During this period, the British government facilitated Jewish immigration to Palestine, a move that was met with growing resentment from the Arab population of the region. The local Arab communities felt threatened by the influx of Jewish immigrants and the prospect of a Jewish national home in their midst. This led to a series of clashes and violent incidents between the two communities, stoking the flames of a conflict that would only grow in the years to come. It's crucial to understand that this period laid the groundwork for the conflict we know today. The tensions between the Jewish immigrants and the Arab population, fueled by the political maneuvers of the British Mandate, set the stage for a struggle over land, identity, and nationhood that continues to shape the Middle East. The foundation for the conflict was thus set during the early 20th century, leading to a series of events that eventually resulted in the creation of Israel. So, what happened after the British Mandate ended? Well, it's a fascinating yet complex tale. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan, aiming to divide the land into two separate states, one for Jews and the other for Arabs. This plan was met with mixed reactions. While Jewish leaders accepted it, the Arab nations vehemently opposed it. Undeterred by the opposition, on May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was officially proclaimed. This historic moment marked the end of British control and the birth of a new nation. But this birth was not without its pains. Almost immediately, surrounding Arab nations including Egypt, Jordan, and Syria declared war, marking the start of the First Arab-Israeli War. For about a year, fierce battles raged across the region. By the time a ceasefire was reached in 1949, Israel had not only defended its existence, but also expanded its territories. The war concluded with the signing of several armistice agreements between Israel and the Arab states, but no formal peace treaties were established. The war had a profound impact on the region. It resulted in an enormous displacement of people, with an estimated 700,000 Palestinians leaving their homes during the conflict. This event, known as the Nakba or catastrophe in Arabic, is still remembered today by Palestinians worldwide. The aftermath of the war saw a significant shift in the demographics of the region. Israel's population almost doubled as Jewish immigrants, many of them Holocaust survivors, flocked to the newly created state. Meanwhile, the Palestinian population found themselves either in exile or living as a minority in their own land. The birth of Israel and the First Arab-Israeli War were major turning points in the Israel-Palestine conflict. The events of this period laid the groundwork for the decades of tension and conflict that would follow, shaping the course of the region's history in profound and lasting ways. Fast forward to 1967, a year that would forever change the landscape of the Middle East. In June of that year, what is now known as the Six-Day War broke out. This conflict saw Israel facing Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, with Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and other Arab nations also lending support. It was a decisive victory for Israel, who managed to capture the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, the Golan Heights from Syria, and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem from Jordan. These territorial gains were significant, effectively tripling the size of the area under Israeli control. But more than just a territorial expansion, it signified a shift in the balance of power in the region. In the wake of the war, Israel began establishing settlements in these newly occupied territories, a move that was and continues to be a major point of contention. These settlements, seen by many as a violation of international law, have been a source of conflict ever since. The growth of these settlements over the years has led to an increase in tension and violence. with Palestinians living in these areas often finding themselves in a state of uncertainty and fear. The international community has expressed growing concern over these settlements. While some countries have condemned Israel's actions, others have called for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The United Nations has passed numerous resolutions decrying the settlements and calling for Israel to withdraw from the occupied territories. But the aftermath of the Six-Day War was not only about the settlements, it also marked the beginning of a new phase in the Israel-Palestine conflict. The war and the occupation that followed sparked a new wave of Palestinian resistance, both peaceful and violent. It led to the rise of various Palestinian political and military groups, determined to fight for their rights and their homeland. The Six-Day War and its aftermath significantly intensified the Israel-Palestine conflict. The war reshaped the Middle East and set the stage for the ongoing conflict that we see today. It's a stark reminder of how historical events continue to influence the present, shaping the lives of millions and the geopolitical landscape of an entire region. But amidst the conflict, there have been attempts at peace, haven't there? Indeed, there have. A significant leap towards peace was made in the early 90s with the Oslo Accords. These agreements were the first direct face-to-face agreements between Israel and political representatives of Palestinians. The accords proposed a 5-year transitional period during which Israeli forces would withdraw from parts of the Gaza Strip and West Bank, and Palestinian self-governance would be established. The Camp David summit in 2000, however, was a different story. This was an ambitious attempt by US President Bill Clinton to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict once and for all. Yet despite nearly 2 weeks of negotiations, the summit ended without an agreement. The sticking points: Jerusalem, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. In the midst of these peace processes, the two-state solution emerged as a potential resolution. This plan proposed the creation of 2 separate states: Israel, a Jewish state, and Palestine, an Arab state. The idea was that this would resolve the conflict by satisfying both sides' national aspirations. Sounds promising, right? However, the two-state solution has been a topic of contention. While many in the international community support it, reception on the ground has been mixed. Some Palestinians worry that the establishment of a separate Palestinian state would simply legitimize Israeli occupation. On the other hand, some Israelis fear that a Palestinian state could become a launching pad for further attacks against Israel. Despite these concerns, the two-state solution remains one of the most frequently discussed resolutions. But it's important to remember that any solution requires the mutual agreement and cooperation of both parties involved. Despite numerous attempts, a lasting peace solution remains elusive. While this may be the case, the pursuit of peace is a testament to the resilience and determination of both Israelis and Palestinians. It's a complex issue, but one that continues to spark important dialogues about national identity, sovereignty, and the right to self-determination. So, where does the conflict stand today, and what might the future hold? The present-day reality of the Israel-Palestine conflict is a complex tapestry of political, religious, and territorial disputes. The status of Jerusalem, the ongoing Israeli settlements, and the condition of the Gaza Strip all play crucial roles in this narrative. Jerusalem, a city of immense spiritual significance to Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike, remains a contentious issue. Jordan's King Abdullah II has expressed concerns about potential changes to the status of Jerusalem's holy sites, reinforcing that Jordan has red lines that, if crossed, could escalate tensions further. With Jordan as the long-standing custodian of these holy sites, any changes could have profound implications. The expansion of Israeli settlements in the West Bank continues to be a major point of contention. These settlements, considered illegal under international law, disrupt the continuity of the Palestinian territories and pose a significant obstacle to the creation of a viable Palestinian state. The situation in the Gaza Strip is equally concerning. The area is one of the most densely populated in the world, and its inhabitants face severe restrictions on movement, economic conditions, and access to basic services. Looking forward, the prospects for peace in the region are uncertain. The two-state solution, long considered the most feasible path to peace, seems increasingly unattainable given the current realities on the ground. With the return of Benjamin Netanyahu to power in Israel, Palestinians fear a potential escalation in violence and further erosion of the possibility of a Palestinian state. However, hope is not entirely lost. calls for peace and coexistence persist, and international efforts to mediate the conflict continue. The challenge lies in finding a solution that respects the rights and aspirations of both Israelis and Palestinians, a task that requires significant political will, compromise, and a commitment to justice and equality. The Israel-Palestine conflict remains one of the most complex and enduring conflicts in the world, with no clear path to resolution. Yet as we navigate this intricate web of history, politics, and human rights, we must remember that the pursuit of peace is not just a political endeavor but a human one.